Warning, this video contains spoiler alerts.
In this series, we'll be looking at every movie in the Godzilla franchise from 1954 to 2024 and learn about the many monsters who were introduced. The Godzilla franchise comprises of 33 official Japanese movies, 5 official US adaptations, and 5 other movies for Rodan and Mothra. For those not familiar with the events and characters in the franchise, this series will help you get familiar with them. Now for the 17th movie of the franchise, Godzilla vs. Biollante, 1989. It started by showing the 4-alarm system that will activate if movement from Godzilla inside of Mount Mihara was detected. The first alarm system was for chemical, geological, meteorological or other than a physical sign of Godzilla's action confirmed. The second alarm system was for when voice and motion confirmed along with any physical sign of Godzilla's action. The third alarm system was for when Godzilla appears. The fourth alarm system was for when Godzilla lands on any specific coast of Japan. After Godzilla's fight with the Super X plane and his fall into the crater of Mount Mihara, a CCN news reporter was making a report about the current events. The emergency measures announced were called off, but the Nishi Shingaku area remained closed. While troops were salvaging the remains of the Super X plane, residual radiation were being examined and radioactive items were being collected. The city looked more like a ghost town now after Godzilla destroyed it in one day. Meanwhile, while the scientists were examining the area, they found something strange. 3 soldiers from Biomajor, a private American biological corporation, were collecting some of the pieces of Godzilla's cells that were scattered around. They were then discovered by some of the scientists working nearby. They fired at the scientists and soldiers and fled with the G cells they collected. The soldiers chased them through the city but lost them in the subway. However, someone was waiting for them. Seradian Secret Service Agent 9, or SSS-9, killed the soldiers and left with the G cells on a Saradia Oil Corporation tanker. In the Republic of Saradia, Dr. Genshiro Shiragami was getting ready to leave since he was informed that the Godzilla cells had arrived. His daughter, Erika Shiragami, wanted to know where he was going. Erika decided to go with him since she knew he could not do anything without her. At the Saradia Institute of Biotechnology, Erika went ahead of her father and left him to speak with the head of the institute. The head of the institute said that the G cells would have been useless garbage if it was not for Dr. Genshiro's idea of using G cells to bioengineer crops to turn the desert into a granary because the oil wells they built their country on would not last forever. Dr. Genshiro said that Erika was successful in breeding the cells of wheat and cacti which can grow in the desert if they added self-reproductive genetic information from the Godzilla cells. The head of the institute laughed because he knew the United States, the current largest cellular exporter in the world, would be shaking. However, an explosion from a laboratory in the institute interrupted their discussion. The head of the institute called to find out what happened and he was told that the research laboratory was destroyed by a bomb. Dr. Genshiro left the office and saw everyone evacuating. He wanted to know where Erika was and ignored their warnings to stay out of the building. He looked around the destroyed laboratory and found Erika lying on the floor. She was dead. 5 years later, Miki Sigusa was 17 and was the best psychic the Mental Science Exploration Center had. Through numerous tests, plants were shown to have their own fields of mental energy, and she was the first to communicate with them. Dr. Genshiro had returned to Japan not long after his daughter died, and he was interested in hearing the voice of a rose. Asuka Okuchi, the ESP Exploitation Institute president, wanted to know what his reason was. But he said that it could be a sign of old age. He lived here alone for 5 years and that the solitude had given him some strange ideas since he still experimented with plants despite leaving the Saradya Institute of Biotechnology. Asuka saw a picture of Erika and remembered what she said about the desert one day being filled with all types of wild flowers. Dr. Genshiro wanted to know how her father, Seigo Okuchi, was. She told him that her father was trying to get funding for a biobank where he wanted to keep the sperms of Nobel Prize winners to create a generation of geniuses despite the opposition. Dr. Genshiro said that her father will find it difficult to get work. Those same kinds of attitudes was what forced him to leave Japan. They found Miki leaving the roses that were kept in a small greenhouse, and she said that she was not able to hear anything. While they went to examine the roses, 2 biomajor spies, John Lee and Michael Lowe, had been tracking Dr. Genshiro for years in hopes of stealing his research on the anti-nuclear energy bacteria, ANEB. SSS-9 was also doing the same nearby and was watching both parties since he also wanted the research for the ANEB. He identified the agents as spies for the American Genetic Corporation, whose plan was to monopolize the genetic market all around the world. Asuka and Miki were about to leave Dr. Genshiro's place when Miki heard a girl's voice calling for Asuka. They then left. At the Godzilla Memorial Lounge, Asuka went to meet her boyfriend, who was a scientist, Kazuhito Kirishima, and he asked her if she had ever heard of a creature called a chimera. A chimera was a legendary monster that breathed fire and appeared from the ocean's depths, causing storms and destroying human beings. It was said to have a lion's head, a goat's body, and a dragon's tail. Asuka knew a chimera was a mythical creature. But Kazuhito told her that if genetic engineers kept playing with cells, they may create their very own chimera, a life that was completely alien and completely different from what God intended for Earth. Asuka knew he was saying this because he too was against her father's plan to start a biobank, just like many others were. But she could not help it since her father was the head of the Ecology Foundation. Kazuhito knew their relationship had nothing to do with her father's work, but he was still uneasy about his work since the foundation was what supports all the labs. She thought that he was acting like Romeo, and she refused to play Juliet. Kazuhito then showed her a letter he got from Massachusetts to study there, and he wanted her to go with him. But she could not give him an answer. Later, in a news report, a series of violent tremors had shaken the area around Mount Mihara on Oshima Island, and smoke was seen rising out of the crater. The Central Seismic Bureau was monitoring the situation, but they were not sure if a full eruption was likely to occur. At the Japan Psionics Center, Asuka heard that all the children being trained at the center had the same dream, and Miki said that it started happening a week ago but had become more clearer now. Miki told the children to show them the picture they drew of the dream they had, and all of them was a picture of Godzilla. At the National Land Bureau, in the Special Disaster Research Council Godzilla Unit, Lieutenant Goro Gondo called to arrange a meeting with Colonel Kuroki on the matter of Godzilla and the dream the children had. A helicopter brought Asuka and Miki to Mount Mihara, and Miki used her psychic powers to detect any activity from Godzilla. Godzilla was awake and the first alarm system was set off. At the Prime Minister's office, the Prime Minister did not believe what Miki said was true, but Goro was hoping it was. The military had many weapons that were up to date with technology to fight Godzilla, including the ESP and bioweaponry, the anti-nuclear energy bacteria. At the Tsukuba Laboratory of Biotechnology, the scientists had developed a bacteria that can eat nuclear material in case of a nuclear accident, just like the United States did for crude oil spills. They planned on using it on Godzilla since he fed on nuclear energy. They had to get the bacteria ready since they were already on an orange level alert on Godzilla. But the bacteria was not meant to be used as a weapon yet. The bacteria could not be grown in a lab on its own because they needed a Godzilla cell to get the nuclear digesting set of genes to create the bacteria. But it was being stored in the Okochi Foundation. They went to Dr. Genshiro to get his help, but he refused because he vowed to never work with Godzilla's cells again after it cost him his daughter. At the Okochi Foundation, Kazuhito went to see Asuka's father about the anti-nuclear energy bacteria and said that nuclear missiles will become useless overnight and there would be a great power shift if the Foundation created the bacteria. Asuka's father, Seigo, knew of the dangers and that powerful people in the world wanted the Godzilla cells. He would have had to use force to get them back, just like Biomajor did when they destroyed Dr. Genshiro's lab 5 years ago in Saradia. The government had entrusted the Godzilla cells to be kept in a vault in the Okochi Foundation as a precaution and will only be used in case of a nuclear emergency that would threaten Japan. But that all changed when Godzilla came back again, and he hated the idea that the cells were being locked up. Seigo showed Kazuhito the Godzilla cell and said that it was only fair that they use the cells as a weapon against nuclear bombs that once devastated Japan, and now they have Godzilla to deal with. They then felt a violent earthquake that caused a powerful eruption at Mount Mihara. Dr. Genshiro rushed outside and went to examine the roses inside the greenhouse that collapsed during the earthquake. He saw that the roses had become weaker and he knew he had to do something or else Erika will die. He called Seigo and joined the development team to create the bacteria on the condition that he gets to keep the Godzilla cells for 7 days. At the shore, Kazuhito and Asuka looked at Mount Mihara out in the distance that was glowing red from the eruption. Developing the bacteria would start tomorrow, but Kazuhito was unsure if Godzilla will appear again. He did not want the bacteria to be created under a false alarm because they would have created something as terrible as Godzilla. Rain then fell and they rushed into the car for shelter. Meanwhile, Dr. Genshiro was experimenting with the Godzilla cells and roses. Back at the Okochi Foundation, Kazuhito tried to get Dr. Genshiro and Seigo to understand why creating the bacteria was dangerous. But Seigo said that they had to develop the bacteria before someone else did, and Dr. Genshiro told him that he did not seem to understand science that well. Back at Dr. Genshiro's lab, the sample had already grown into a full plant and was rapidly mutating. A helicopter flew back to monitor Godzilla's movement inside of Mount Mihara, and the second alarm system went off. The military had created a Super X-2 that was developed with the latest onboard supercomputer and was now submersible to operate at extreme depths as 10,000 meters. The armor was made with the latest material, TA-32, which was twice as durable as the titanium alloy used on the Super X. It was also equipped with a fire mirror that was constructed with synthetic diamonds so Godzilla's atomic breath would be reflected back to him. Back at the lab, Dr. Genshiro and Kazuhito were monitoring the cell division in the bacteria they made. Meanwhile, the two Biomajor spies were searching for the research for the anti-nuclear energy bacteria, and SSS-9 came to take the research for himself. They started firing at each other, but then something came out of the lab and wrapped around one of the spies. The other spy escaped and SSS-9 was trapped in the vine's grip. He cut himself loose with a knife and fled. Kazuhito got a call about the incident and they identified the bodies found belonging to Bio Major. No one knew how they died, but they knew they were after the data for the anti-nuclear energy bacteria. They examined the damage done to the lab and Dr. Genshiro found the piece of the plant that was cut off. He thought that he made an immortal plant species by giving it self-reproducing abilities using the Godzilla cells. But he now saw that it was a mistake as he looked out at the lake where the plant monster escaped to. Back at the Japan Psionics Center, Mickey had another dream of a plant monster with a rose for a head and drew a picture of it. At the Prime Minister's office, they received a message from an organization called Alien who threatened to blow up Mount Mihara so the eruption would free Godzilla if they did not turn over all of their Godzilla cells. But Seigo knew it was Bio Major and said it was a bluff. Then they got a call from Mount Mihara about a small explosion that was a warning and showed that Bio Major was not bluffing. More like it were coming if they kept stalling. Meanwhile, Asuka and Mickey went to search near the lake for the plant monster. Kazuhito got the call about Bio Major's demands, but he did not want to hand the bacteria over to them. Asuka then ran in and told them to follow her to the lake. At the lake, a crowd formed as reporters, civilians and police officers came to see the plant monster that was now towering at the center of the lake. Dr. Genshiro called the plant monster Biolante, the spirit of a plant that appeared in Norse mythology, but this plant had a human spirit. Mickey knew it was Erika's spirit inside of the plant and it was calling for Asuka's help. Kazuhito was not happy with the outcome because he knew this was going to happen. Later, Goro and Kazuhito went to take the bacteria to the Bio Major agents but were interrupted when they were about to deactivate the detonation switch to the bomb. SSS-9 shot them to drop the case and the Bio Major agent tried to escape. But SSS-9 shot the agent, causing the truck to swerve and tip over. The control board for the detonation switch was damaged and the timer for the detonation started with only 2 minutes until the explosion. Goro and Kazuhito tried to get the truck open while SSS-9 went for the case. SSS-9 drove off with the case before Kazuhito could get it and Goro got the doors open. But it was too late. The controls no longer worked and there were only seconds left until detonation. The crater in Mount Mihara exploded and Godzilla walked out of the volcano, setting off the third alarm system. Godzilla was free and they lost the anti-nuclear energy bacteria. News outlets were informed. Dr. Genshiro, Asuka, and Mickey were by the lake and heard the news. Mickey then heard Biolante crying. The military started to evacuate the areas where Godzilla would be passing through while they monitored Godzilla approaching Tokyo. They started attacking Godzilla at sea to prevent him from coming towards Tokyo and Godzilla blasted his atomic breath at the ships to destroy them. At the Operations Center Self-Defense Agency, they monitored Godzilla and estimated about 24 hours until Godzilla reached Tokyo. The Super X-2 plane was then sent to fight Godzilla. They started using the fire mirrors against Godzilla and reflected all his atomic blasts back at him. Godzilla went underwater and the Super X-2 followed him as he started heading west. Colonel Kuroki got a call from Garo about what happened and he ordered all airports to be closed. They used the battle against Godzilla in the Uraga Channel as their excuse to close all the airports. SSS-9 was listening to the news report on the radio about the airport closures while he was driving on the Tomei Highway, heading west. Kazuhito and Garo went to see Seigo, who gave them information on the Saradia Oil Corporation that was based in Osaka. It was run by a former SSS agent and used as a front for their spying activities. A freighter in Kobe left for Saradia every week and that SSS-9 could use that to escape. Meanwhile, Dr. Genshiro was approached by a reporter who heard of his experiment, but he did not want to talk to her because they always criticized science without understanding it. Then one of Biolante's clawed vines destroyed part of the pier. Mickey said that she was shut out of the connection and that it was no longer Erica's spirit inside of Biolante since it was a cross between Plant and Godzilla. They then heard Biolante calling for someone and Mickey heard that it was Godzilla. Godzilla then turned northwards towards Adawara and the Super X-2 attacked him to keep him underwater. Godzilla blasted his atomic breath at them from above water but missed. The Super X-2 then emerged and used the fire mirror to reflect his atomic breath back at him. But the synthetic diamond started to melt down the more they used it, causing the reflection rate to decrease to 40%. They switched to missiles, but Godzilla blasted his atomic breath at them and smashed his tail into the Super X-2. They tried to bring the Super X-2 back to base while Godzilla left for Lake Hashi in the east coast. Biolante continued calling for Godzilla while the military prepared for his arrival. When Godzilla arrived, he entered the lake and looked at Biolante. Dr. Genshiro wanted to stay to watch what was going to happen while everyone was evacuating from the area. Biolante wrapped her vines around Godzilla to try to restrain him. Dr. Genshiro wondered if Godzilla came because he knew Biolante was made from the same cells. He did not call them brother and sister, but referred to them as the same being. Godzilla struggled to get free and blasted Biolante with his atomic breath. Mickey said that Biolante was dying after seeing her petals wither away and Godzilla got free from the vines. Dr. Genshiro said that Godzilla's atomic breath must have had an abnormal effect on Biolante's cell division. Godzilla and Biolante continued fighting until his atomic breath left her in flames and she disappeared in a cloud of glitter. Dr. Genshiro saw that Biolante was not immortal after all. Meanwhile, repairs were being done to the Super X-2. They got a call about Godzilla being in Sagami Bay and that he was heading out to sea. Most of the repairs to Super X were completed with just the main computer for the remote control needing to be changed, but they could no longer use the fire mirror. Godzilla had melted too much of it for it to be repaired in time. They were shocked to learn that Godzilla melted synthetic diamond, which was beyond technological limits. The military started searching for Godzilla but could not find him. Colonel Kuroki brought Mickey along to help search for Godzilla since she could detect him the same way she did at Mount Mihara. She found Godzilla heading west along Hamamatsu. The military knew the last time Godzilla came was to restore his nuclear energy, but the fight with Super X-2 and Biolante used up most of his energy. They found 5 potential nuclear plants in Makasa Bay, 1 at Maizuru, 1 at Obana, and 3 at Suruga, which was a third of the plants in Japan. It would be a disaster if Godzilla were to destroy any of them. They saw from Godzilla's current position, the closest nuclear plant to him would be at Nagoya. They sent their navy and army out to surround the peninsula and have an all-out attack at Ise Bay. But Godzilla was likely to come from Wakasa Bay, which could be a problem if everyone was at the wrong bay. The radars then detected Godzilla surfacing near Osaka Bay and they redirected the fleet and Super X-2 to there while they ordered an evacuation on Osaka. At the Kansai International Airport construction base, Asuka and Mickey landed on a helipad that faced the ocean and saw Godzilla. Mickey used her powers to try to call Godzilla over to them and Asuka told the soldiers to leave on the helicopter because it was not safe. When they left, Asuka went downstairs to get a closer look at Godzilla and Godzilla saw Mickey on the helipad when he looked for where the telepathy was coming from. He slowly went over to her while she tried to create a stronger connection, but she fainted due to the mental overload. Asuka went to wake her up and Godzilla left. The fourth alarm system was activated. Kazuhito and Garo arrived in Osaka while everyone was being evacuated and went to the office building where the Saradia Oil Corporation was. They found a man trying to leave with the case the anti-nuclear energy bacteria was kept in and took it from him. At the Saradia Institute of Biotechnology, the head of the institute told SSS-9 to forget about the bacteria but to make sure that Japan did not make any more of the bacteria. SSS-9 was in Osaka and watched Godzilla's destruction of the city through the window. Godzilla kept moving through Osaka and walked through buildings and bridges that were in his way. He left the city in flames as he continued towards the business district where Super X-2 was waiting for him. Some soldiers came on a helicopter and went into different buildings in the business district. Super X used its missiles to lure Godzilla closer to the buildings, but they soon ran out of missiles. The bazooka team got into position inside the buildings, but Godzilla was not in the right position yet. Super X-2 tried to use the fire mirror to get him into position, but was sent down in flames after one blast of atomic breath and exploded. The bazooka team then fired darts into Godzilla that contained the anti-nuclear energy bacteria. But Godzilla saw Goro while he was packing up. Goro fired another of the darts into Godzilla's mouth, but Godzilla destroyed the building he was in. Godzilla continued heading north towards the Tuppa Mountains. Asuka and Kazuhito watched over Miki while she was unconscious in the hospital, and he got a call from Colonel Kuroki about how long the bacteria will take to work. The anti-nuclear energy bacteria would take effect within 6 to 12 hours after exposure and 8 hours on average. But a lot of time had passed and no signs of effect was showing from Godzilla, even though he got 3 doses of the bacteria, with one of them going into his mouth. One dose was lethal enough, so it made no sense why nothing has happened to Godzilla yet. Kazuhito then saw hospital attendants taking ice packs to substitute for the refrigerators since the power plant was destroyed by Godzilla. He then realized that the reason why the bacteria was not working was because of Godzilla's body temperature being too low. Bacteria bred slower in low temperatures, causing a slow reaction. They decided to use the M6000 TC system that made artificial lightning, clouds and heat using high-frequency waves. The military began preparations in installing all 100 generators. Miki then woke up and she drew a picture of a rose in space. Colonel Kuroki, Dr. Genshiro, and Kazuhito went to the site while the artificial clouds were already pouring down. They started using lasers against Godzilla to lure him into the TC zone and activated the mines as he stepped onto them. The heat from the artificial lightning was hot enough to easily melt an A1 tank. They fired more lasers and missiles at him to keep him inside the TC zone. But Godzilla fired his atomic breath at them and destroyed the lasers and missiles. Asuka and Miki then came to tell them that Biollante was still alive. They noticed that Godzilla was starting to move sluggishly now. Helicopters came to fire more missiles at him, but he destroyed them with his atomic breath. They then wondered if Godzilla was immune to the bacteria. Miki went outside when it stopped raining, and the others came out when they noticed something in the sky. A cloud of glitter floated down from the sky, which was jamming the military's system. The cloud of glitter rained down over Godzilla, who also stopped to see what was going on. Then the ground caved below him and Biollante's vines came out of the ground. Biollante destroyed the last of the military vehicles and surfaced from underground. She evolved and now had a proper head. Godzilla blasted his atomic breath at her to cut all of her vines, and she came after him. She wrapped her vines around him and punctured his hand. She stabbed more of her vines into him, but he pulled them out. He blasted his atomic breath at her and she sprayed him with an acid-like substance. They continued fighting until Godzilla suddenly stopped and collapsed into the sea. The bacteria has started to take effect, and Seigo congratulated Dr. Genshiro on the success. He wanted them to secure samples so they could make more of the bacteria, but Dr. Genshiro said that Biollante convinced him to stop his work on bacteria. Biollante then disappeared in a cloud of glitter, and they saw Erika's spirit in it as it flew away. Dr. Genshiro was then shot by SSS-9, and Kazuhito went after him in a military jeep. Kazuhito drove through the hillside to block SSS-9 and ran them off the road. Both vehicles rolled down the hill into the TC zone. They got out of the vehicles and started fighting. SSS-9 then stood on top of one of the TC generators and pointed his rifle at Kazuhito. But Colonel Kuroki activated the generator and disintegrated SSS-9. Asuka then came to pick him up but said that Dr. Genshiro had died. Godzilla then emerged from the sea and left. Kazuhito then decided that he would stay in Japan and not go to America to study. Colonel Kuroki watched Godzilla swim off in the distance and went back to base. So, G-cells are definitely not something to mess around with, and they're only going to become another problem that Godzilla will have to deal with when Space Godzilla enters the story. This movie was a bit long since so much had happened that it felt like I watched two movies in one. So much had happened in the first 30 minutes of the movie before Godzilla appeared. But G-cells are a very popular concept that came into the franchise and is one of the reasons why the Heisei era of the franchise is a long-time fan favorite, along with having some of the most powerful villains in the franchise. The Heisei era also inspired other Godzilla forms like legendary Godzilla's thermonuclear form from Godzilla, King of the Monsters, 2019, which was very similar to Heisei Godzilla's burning form from Godzilla vs. Destoroyah, 1995. But without the whole life-ending detail. That's mostly thanks to Mothra. Heisei Godzilla did not have the same help from Mothra like legendary Godzilla did because she died in Godzilla vs. Mothra, 1992. Now the only places you see Heisei Godzilla is in comics and video games. Godzilla vs. Biollante is about the birth of a plant hybrid monster using Godzilla's cells, Godzilla's freedom from his volcanic prison, and the industrial war of biotechnology between Japan, the United States of America, and the Republic of Saradia. Since some ambitions are too great to be pursued even if it would make a scientific breakthrough. Both Biollante and Godzilla were born through human greed. Innocent creatures brought into the world as they are, but not by free will. In Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, 1991, the entire movie was about Godzilla's origin. It explains why Heisei Godzilla is always so angry throughout the Heisei era, and you just can't help but feel sorry for the poor guy after seeing what happened. His origin was also a bit similar to Godzilla -1. The only difference was that Heisei was more benevolent to the soldiers he met, while -1 was more hostile to the soldiers he met. But we'll talk more about that in the next movie. This aspect of the story introduces us to Biollante, a plant hybrid monster that is usually considered by fans as Godzilla's sister. In the next movie, we'll be reintroduced to King Ghidorah, with something different about him, and dive deeper into Godzilla's origin story. Be sure to like and subscribe for more. Until next time.